better come back throughout the afternoon.
All right, cool. We are on. We're good to go.
What bank are you with now?
Awesome. Main Street Bank, Marlboro, Mass.
Mid Street Bank.
Main Street.
Main Street.
Spelt all out.
Yeah. Have you ever been on? You ever been on
STREET?
Mid Street?
No.
Yeah, just because it doesn't exist.
Main Street, like mid market.
Main Street.
It's not great. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Mid Market
somewhere.
Bank
Yeah.
might be actually a pretty decent name.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the middle market.
Mid Market and
That's your
Co.
business focus. Yeah.
You know.
100%.
Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why you would declare that you would want to be in the mid market.
Exactly.
But anywho.
Yeah. So we're a small bank. We're
we haven't. We're not recording yet.
We are.
Don't lie. Oh, we are.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I said we're recording, and then you said, "What bank are you at again?"
Well, I thought we were getting ready to do the intros.
I thought that was part of the shtick.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this whole thing is shtick. Make no
Yeah.
mistake. Yeah. Brendan will kick us off. Get your
Nice.
intro. I mean, we just added all this trash out anyway. Probably not though. So, Brendan, kick us off. Let's go.
So today we're super excited to have Brandon Curran with us from Main Street Bank. Brandon is an expert in the cannabis or the cannabis business,
Is
but
that
I
what we
think
call it? Cannabis.
I think they do.
Canna banking.
Canna banking.
That's what they actually call me at this point.
Yeah. So we're
I feel like we could have a better nickname than that.
the cannabis. I think cannabis,
Cannabis
is great.
good. I don't know if I like
Canna Bank. Well, we'll work through that. We'll work
Maybe
through that.
we'll workshop something
Yeah.
today. So
But anyway, we're super excited to have Brandon here with us. Brandon is a friend that I was introduced to by another podcast guest. Actually, have we had him on the? We haven't had him on the podcast, have we?
I don't even know who you're talking about.
Joe Shinatico. I don't think we've had him on.
No, he fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah, well, he didn't. I was with him at the Encore the other night. So
Get a CrossFit.
definitely still around.
CrossFit training.
I
Get
gotta
a
be honest with
CrossFit,
you.
Yeah.
I think that was the last time I saw Joe Shinatico.
Was that the Encore?
Was at the Encore? Yeah.
It's a recurring theme.
I taught
It is not.
taught my textbook foolproof roulette strategy.
So I've
in for
had
that.
an awakening. I have come to terms that the only game I should be playing is roulette.
Because it's mindless and easy.
Yeah, and I lose so much money so quickly everywhere else. So from now on,
Blackjack is a rich man's game.
yeah, declaration on the podcast today. No more blackjack, only roulette.
Blackjack's tough.
Yeah.
Toughest game out there.
Well, I can't count fast enough. I'm not a banker,
Well-
right? So I'm like, I don't know how many fucking cards are there. What do I do with the ace?
I played football in college. I'm not the best at math either. So
I feel like I use a
Are the
calculator.
two related?
exactly. Football and banking.
Yeah.
Not really.
No, not
I mean,
a lot
I think
of rules,
so.
a lot to remember, but other than that, no.
Relationships.
I guess.
Yeah.
I'm married. I mean,
Yeah.
tell me how they go together. Let me know.
Well-
Anywho,
I mean, we could go down that
Joe
rabbit hole.
we're talking about Joe
forever.
Shinatico
Yeah.
for most of the podcast,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe, what's up, man?
So tell us about how you got into the cannabis, right? So I'm guessing you didn't graduate from college and be like, you know what, I'm going to be a canna banker.
Yeah, no, it's a windy road. I mean, like I said, I'm now 47,
We're here for the
right?
windy roads, man.
That's a
Tell us the
great-
story.
Windy, yeah,
That's a great way to
uphill,
put it.
downhill. It's a good road. But yeah, so being here in East Boston doing the podcast.
See, there you go, knocking the table
My
already.
dad is actually from East Boston. He grew up in Maverick Square. It's kind of like home to me. So we had a little birthday celebration at my house this weekend.
Get
And we
out.
loaded up with about $300 worth of Santar BOs. Brought it out to Waltham. I'll tell you, it didn't travel well. I hate to say this in a public venue, but it didn't travel well. I got home and the pizza and it was a little burnt, a little too lacy. The barbecue didn't travel well, but needless to say, onto my journey. So yeah, started out, graduated from Union College in 1998. Went to work at
Where's that?
Schenectady,
New
New
York.
York. It's right outside of Albany. It's
I've-
a nice place to
I've-
visit. You don't want to stay there for 4 years.
I sadly know Schenectady fairly well.
yeah, it's it's in Lynn too. It's GE land. It was big GE
Have you
land.
been to the Schenectady Casino?
I have been. Yeah.
Did you
Fairly
play
new,
blackjack
fairly new.
there?
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm
The
sorry to hear
Mohawk. What is it? I can't think of the name of it.
that. I'll have to live look up.
Is
Even
that the Mohawk Mountain House?
even the steakhouse stinks
No.
in there. It's like the one casino that has a lousy
They have
steakhouse.
restaurants?
Oh yeah, totally. It's got a hotel attached to it and everything. But so yeah, I got out of Union '98. Went to work at Fidelity. First year out of school. First job out of school. Making $23,000 a year. Commuting back
Killing
and forth to God knows where, Marlboro. It started out.
Is that in Massachusetts?
Yeah, That's where we are now. That's where we are now. So it was.
That's where the Main Street
that's
is?
where Main Street Bank is based out of. It's actually Marlboro. It's kind of everything's
Full circle.
Full circle for me.
Yeah.
I started out going out to Marlboro. I'm back out going out there now. But from Waltham, it's only like a 35-minute ride door to door. But I always thought I would be in investments, mutual funds, banking. I worked as a bank advisor for a period of time. Went external to wholesale, and I was covering the West Coast, which was wild. I had California, Arizona, and Hawaii. Tons of travel. Got back to being in New York. And we had some kids. I mean, and life happened, right? And you just can't be on the road 20 nights a month. I mean, it's just too much,
What's a wholesaler for the listeners? I know, but
a wholesaler would be
might not.
somebody who represents a money manager, like a BlackRock or like a Fidelity or something like that, and Vanguard. And they would go to a territory like in New York or New Jersey, and they would basically promote that company's funds to those advisors in a wholesale capacity.
So you're like trying to convince people to invest with your company's money.
Correct. And I
Got
was
it.
with Standard & Poor's, so I was always going up against BlackRock and, things like that, Vanguard, those kind of models. So, that whole model of being a financial advisor has gone from, picking stuff yourself to kind of picking models that are professionally managed for you. And you're basically designed to, as an advisor, keep your clients happy, you know what I mean, and kind of vet the products that they're using, but not really picking the investments per se. It's more of a relationship manager type job at that point. Being away all those days, 20 nights a month, having young kids, wanted to get home, wanted to coach, wanted to, be more involved in their life, and, got to Northern Bank, which actually had a cannabis program right before the start of COVID. I started with them, and when I went in, they probably had 15 or 18 accounts, and me and a guy by the name of Chris Ellis, Jana Abramson, a couple of other people, we grew it from about 18 accounts to probably about 200 accounts, I bet.
Wow.
In a couple of year window. So,
because there weren't a lot of people at that point in the banking world wanting to even touch marijuana money.
Yeah, no. So
or cannabis.
100%. So the Sloan family with Century Bank years back, they were the first in the pool, right? So.
Were they really charging $5,000 a month for like a checking account as a maintenance fee?
Even more, to be honest
No
with you, because
shit.
it was based on the entity, right? So like if you were an entity that had multiple
What a racket.
multiple tax IDs, you might have been paying them 10, 15, 20,000 in some cases on a monthly basis.
That's why they look so profitable for Eastern.
Yeah, no, there was no one else out there, right? So, at the time it was really Century, then Bay Coast and Gardner Federal Credit Union got in the game. Northern got in about the same time. Main Street was probably about that time. Now you probably have 13 or 14 banks in Massachusetts in that space. And some of them are pretty good size, like Berkshire Bank's in there, and they're a good size institution. I mean, generally you're looking at banks that are domiciled in the state where cannabis is legal. They're not usually reaching out of state. They're not, in multiple states. And that's kind of where it is. And I mean, it's going to be a long time, I think, before you see the Citizens and the Bank of Americas and the Chases and guys like that. And,
Right.
It's an ideology thing, but it's also a logistical thing, right? So like they would technically have to know all the rules of every state that they're located in. They would have to have, offices set up in every state to handle it. And, at what point does Chase or Bank of America just say, this isn't going to really be, profitable
us,
to a
yeah.
bank that's at that level? You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's really the
Why?
question.
Why is that?
It's just simply because they would have to be in like literally like at some point 50 states, because ultimately if cannabis becomes legal if it becomes legal in every state, it's going to be probably a one blanket kind of oversee of it, almost like alcohol. So states could kind of say, look, the drinking law here is 18, the drinking law here is 21, but it has to adhere to the federal law. Right. So you can go above and beyond federal law. You just can't go below it. Right. So like if the federal voting age is 18, you can't say in my state it's going to be 16, right? But you could,
20.
you could always go above and beyond, but
Right.
never below.
Right.
So
We can buy weed everywhere and take it on planes?
that's a sticky subject because the air is actually national. It's federal, right? So like you could say like I'm leaving Boston and I'm going to Arizona. It's legal in both states.
Yeah.
But you're crossing over and you're in basically U.S. federal airspace, international airspace.
Okay.
So now you're not legal because you're basically going on a plane and bringing that with you.
Couldn't you argue that someone owns those air rights?
You could, but
The government?
I would bet TSA wins that
you're
battle, and you
probably
probably
right.
lose the
You're
weed.
probably right.
I'll be frank with you. If you try to bring weed on a plane, they're probably taking the weed and just
Smoking it?
throwing it out,
Eating
or
it?
confiscating it, or whatever they're doing.
Taking
with
it
But
home?
Yeah, they're not. I don't
that
see,
TSA agent
I don't
is
imagine
definitely
they're
taking
putting
it
you,
home.
They're not putting you in a jail if they pull you over in Logan Airport and I'm guessing you have a reasonable amount of weed on you for personal use. I imagine they're just taking it. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. you are. I don't want to speak for anybody, but
I don't practice in that area.
No, of course, exactly. It's the quickest out.
You would think that the bigger banks, I mean, I don't know anything about this, obviously, so feel free to weigh in, but my gut tells me, like, if I'm Bank of America, I just stay the hell out of it until it's cleaned up enough where I can jump in, and then I can probably jump in and take some of the business.
And they can jump in with a knockout punch.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And I would guarantee you that the Chases, the Wells Fargos, they're already have teams in place that are putting all this together.
They just flip the switch.
100%.
Say we're doing this now, and then everybody at Berkshire Bank, unfortunately, is out the door to the big box companies. So.
And the reality of it too is, I mean, if you look from like a stigma standpoint, right? So like the stigma is the biggest thing going. So like my mom's 79 years old, Italian woman, she hasn't cannabis. She's never even heard of cannabis, right? Like it's always marijuana or like weed or pot. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Are you still selling weed? I'm like, Mom, I do banking.
I sell banking services, Mom.
It's like I do like commercial lending and like checking accounts and savings accounts and things like that. But at the end of the day, it has that stigma, right? So I was telling Brendan off air, about 2 years ago, I always played college football. I was a big guy, 280, 290 pounds, and right around COVID, I just really kind of ballooned up to like 340, 350. And I think this is like a story you would hear from multiple guys in their 40s or 50s or, whatever. And, I basically got on Nutrisystem. I stopped drinking. And from like March till probably like June of that year, like I'm talking 3-month, 4-month window, the tandem of Nutrisystem not drinking, I lost about 70 pounds.
That's
in
crazy.
Like a 4-month window.
Unbelievable, because I am on Nutra, which is different than Nutrisystem.
It's a Nutra system.
It is.
Yeah. Maybe you should start drinking.
Is that the Perina brothers?
Yeah,
they're from Reading.
Seth does it too.
Those guys are great. Those guys are great guys.
Well, can you send this to them?
Reading Rockets. They play football in Reading. Tino Perina and the guys. Yeah, they're folks on a restaurant too.
Send it to them and tell them that they should sponsor the podcast.
I 100% will let them know.
Please do that. Nutra, we're still looking for sponsors.
Yeah, they are totally Reading guys and they're North Shore guys through and through.
Food's good.
Yeah.
The food's great. I get it every week.
How many extra cooler bags do you have at your house?
I am diligent about putting them out. The Weldon Farm ones, not so much. The Nutra ones, because they have that framework in them, you can't like shove them in the same bag. Yeah. So I make sure they're on the porch on Saturday night.
I get nasty text messages. If you have extra cooler bags, please leave them outside.
Yeah. So they do a great job. But like I said, with the Nutrisystem, I mean, the weight loss, having the kids, it was kind of a natural progression. And what happened was for me, the cannabis actually was kind of like a lifesaver. Like I basically 100% quit drinking when I started Nutrisystem, back in March of 2020, 2021 at this point. Wow. And I haven't had a drink since. And honestly, I don't miss it at all. Yeah. Like it's like, I could have a bottle of bourbon in a night, a half a bottle of bourbon in a night. And I'd wake up the next day, I felt like I was in a street fight. Now
I hear you.
You have a couple gummies, a couple of, cannabis seltzers, you sit on your couch, you wake up the next day, you feel like invigorated. You want to go. You want to get on a bike. Yeah. You don't feel bad at all. So for me, it's been a godsend. Not a motorcycle, like a Peloton. No. I have a Harrow Beasley, like kind of like a hybrid bike, and I kind of get out every morning. I do the Lexington Trail and that stuff. But
that's cool.
I mean, it kind of keeps me in shape. But yeah, for me, it was life-changing.
No,
I wish. No, I don't think my wife would allow that. She's like, yeah, that sounds
like a hybrid.
He's doing what you call a physical activity. I think, Brendan.
I do the physical activity.
Do you?
But if you look at the
worked out this morning.
Got out of bed.
No, I was at the gym at 6.
Nice.
Yeah. And the car wash at 6:10.
No, the car wash doesn't open until 8, so I did not get there until 8:30.
I have 2 kids. If you saw my car, his skin would fall off. If you saw the Cheerios and the stains and the hockey, I literally played against
sports
your kids? In my garage. My daughter's 8, almost 8. My son is 6.5.
Nice.
So about 18 months apart.
My daughter turns 4 tomorrow. We have a 6-month-old.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
And yeah, thank you.
You're more of a pickle than me.
And my wife's car looks like I imagine your car does.
Yeah. It's a complete trash can. Yeah.
Sorry, John.
Yeah. But
it is what it is,
It's kind of wild. But I mean,
does she have the monthly pass?
She does.
You definitely do.
I definitely
They limit him to 1 a day.
Dude, no, I went twice on Saturday.
He texted me. He goes, hey, do you think he's like a pterodactyl shit on my hood? I had to go back an hour later.
Possibly.
And I said, I think I would have went home and like put a wig on or changed or something. I'd be so embarrassed.
It's like the food court. I used to have a buddy. He used to go through the food court in the North Shore Mall.
Yeah.
He used to literally like take his sweatshirt off.
Free sample.
Put a hat on. Yeah. But he would walk through like 3 times. Like once he would have a hat on. Once he would have no jacket on. I'm like, dude, this is masterful.
Yeah.
The orange chicken was pretty good.
They know
he maximized the Kung Pao chicken in the mall. Like the Peabody Mall.
Make no mistake, that lady knew.
She knew.
Yeah,
she had a crush on him.
But it was her job to give out as many samples as possible.
Yeah.
So she thought she was
winning. She was winning.
Well, by the way, this is what happens. We end up talking about literally
Random shit.
It just goes off track. Yeah, 100%.
And it's all good. So, okay. So interesting background. What's a day in the life look like for a dude in the cannabis?
So it's really a lot like really any other business. The people are wired a little bit differently in general, and I mean that in a really good way, right? So, at the end of the day, like I used to go banging on doors on Wall Street, and I'd have on literally like a, $2,000 suit, Allen Edmonds shoes, the whole thing, and everyone's, let me show you my watch, let me tell you about my Audi. I'm like, it's not compelling after like 200 of those meetings, like in a week.
Yeah.
You're just like, come on, So you get into cannabis, and like most of these guys, as I was kind of telling Brendan before I got in here, most of these guys and ladies came from another line of business. Like they were successful as an architect or a business owner, restaurant owner, builder, whatever they were in that they were doing first. They basically were like, look, I can kind of, diversify my lines of income, and get into cannabis. And most people that do it, it's for a reason, right? It's like for the love of the product, or it's for, gee, my mom was really sick. She had, cancer. And instead of treating her with normal like oncology drugs, we kind of went an alternative route, and, it helped her have a really good quality of life at the end, and, things like that. And, my wife works for a pharmaceutical company, in Waltham, and their number one selling drug is essentially designed to get people off of opiates. It's called Vivitrol, right? So at the end of the day, I feel like if doctors had treated people, previously, with cannabis. Now, look, like it's not going to be a solution for everything, right? Like you can't have bone marrow cancer, smoke a joint, and you're going to be fine, right? But there's probably a lot of circumstances.
What about anxiety?
Yeah, 100%. So there's probably a lot of things that they could,
as long as you take the right stuff,
they could have treated things with that probably would have avoided if you kind of used that medical, marijuana kind of line. And I just, that's one thing that kind of hits home that you look now and you look at the pickle we're in with the the opiates and stuff, and it's like, But to your point with the anxiety, I was kind of talking earlier with that too. It's the THC. If you kind of go with you're not used to it.
Yeah.
You go with a higher level.
Yeah.
You can get like a little bit of a frantic feeling. You might get a little bit of a paranoid or like a frantic feeling. So everybody kind of responds differently.
Do you get to sample all the products when you're going into Haka checking account?
So most of the samples that they give you are not dosed.
Oh, so it's like for the flavor. You don't give a shit about the flavor.
The CCC does a really good job of basically
they don't listen, so you don't have to kiss their ass.
They kind of they're kind of putting in
Cannabis Control Commission.
Yeah, so they kind of put in a lot of parameters around these guys, that are selling, cannabis in
so they can't have the lady at the mall handing out the orange chicken.
No. Handing out the gummies in the container.
That would be a good model.
That would be a great model.
I'd see a lot of repeat customers.
Your buddy would be probably on the side of the road somewhere.
The crazy thing is with the gummies is a lot of them are so delicious. You want to oh, that was so good. Like I literally would like to have like 2 or 3 more.
Which ones are you
buying? But you know what's going to be on the end of that. What's going to be on the end of that?
Have you had the ice cream?
I've had the ice cream.
Yeah.
Cloud candy is a big one. That's one of the bigger ones that they have out.
One of the ones in Lynn sells the ice cream. I brought it to my friend.
It's pretty good. It's not bad.
My friend moved to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a cooler bag. I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? So I had to go to the convenience store next door and buy like one of those ghetto turkey
the styrofoam ones?
Totally. No, like a tin foil pan that you would put a turkey in the oven.
And you folded it in half with ice?
I just put ice on top of it in the thing.
Super ghetto.
It was the most ghetto thing.
Why didn't you buy the gas station styrofoam cooler?
They didn't have any. I looked.
The Nutrisystem comes with that dry ice.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I always thought that it was a fallacy about touching it. I thought it was like to scare your kids.
Oh yeah.
So what did I do? No, I picked it up, dude. The thing like stuck to my hands, like third degree, terrible.
Oh shit.
My wife's like, it says it on there 4,000 times. You think they were joking? I was like, I don't know. I gotta roll the dice. I'm a risk taker.
What is it? Cilia gel? Don't eat that either.
Oh,
not good either.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the stuff that comes like in like packaging stuff.
Definitely
right?
don't eat that.
I mean, I have urea formaldehyde.
I probably I
think that replaced
I haven't eaten it, but
yes,
I'm just genuinely concerned for your well-being that you should definitely not eat that.
I roll the dice.
Yeah.
All these warnings on packages, they're made for like kids and 47-year-old guys that like to roll the dice a little.
Dry ice is scary shit.
So are there like specials on like CDs or like checking accounts? Like, do you get an extra debit card when you're a cannabis business when you open a new business checking account?
No, but I will. I'll call it like this. Since I've been in the business, I've tried to basically normalize the best we can transactions for these guys in all capacities, right? So at the end of the day, it's like they've always felt like, and I can say this with full impunity because I have red hair, they've always kind of felt like a redhead stepchild, right? So like everything's expensive, right? Like Oh, you want to get into real estate? You're a cannabis company. Boom, more expensive. You want to buy insurance? Boom, more expensive. You want to do payroll? Everything's more expensive because the company you're buying from, unfortunately, has all of these regulatory vices squeezed down on them, right? So we have to, as a bank, if we want to bank you, we basically are under a lot of regulatory scrutiny. So we essentially would have to charge you, a slightly higher fee. Now, back in the day, you're quoting these fees of $5,000. Now, this is probably like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Has it come down?
If you look at banks now, most of them in Massachusetts, monthly wise, are free. I mean, we don't even charge a monthly
free
fee.
banking.
We don't even charge a monthly fee. And in fact,
is that with a minimum balance?
No, it's for everybody. And in fact, and we'll give
regardless of how many transactions.
I'll give you a toaster, Brendan, if you come
what
over
the
now.
fuck? I'm leaving. See you, Bank of America. I can do as many transactions as I want. Do you charge for wires?
Yeah, you need to talk to Shamoon, bro.
Yeah, Shamoon, if you listen. I need that savings account.
So at the end of the day, I will tell you how we work the wires. And if you keep a balance with us, we give you earnings credits. So if you say, for example, have like $100,000, we give you 1% on your earnings. So basically, so you have $100,000, you're going to get $1,000, for fees. You know
what if it's in an IOLTA?
The IOLTA, it's an interesting question because those have different EINs on them, correct? So they
have to send all. Yeah, they have the IOLTA committee's EIN.
So they can't household them into an account that the client's getting credit for. Correct. Yeah. So in that case, you're probably paying for the wires.
Oh yeah.
Frankly. I'm surmising Bank of America's charging.
What about escrow accounts?
No, they're fine because they're under yours. Yeah.
Right. I mean, those accounts traditionally don't have a lot of activity on them anyway. They're just kind of like a sit and hold until the client leaves. Correct.
Not if you do real estate conveyancing. Millions and millions move in and out a day.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I don't work in that vertical, so forgive my ignorance on that.
I don't know about millions.
Yeah.
I mean, not
probably 10, 15 million a day.
Yeah, maybe if I'm.
I mean, Brendan, in my world,
on a Friday.
In my world, that's small change, Brendan.
Yeah.
No, it probably is in the cannabis business.
No, so it's
money printing machine.
It's an interesting vertical. I've seen it really kind of skyrocket to the top in Mass. I've seen it
come back down though, right? Like everybody's saying that the cannabis business is like not doing well.
I think that's kind of like doom and gloom. Okay. I mean, really, Mass has an unlimited number of licenses they've issued. So at the end of the day, right? Like I live in Waltham. At this point, I can go to Belmont, I can go to Watertown, I can go to Arlington, I can go to Newton.
Can you go to Waltham?
Waltham, not just yet. We have 4 or 5 on the way. I think 4 have been licensed and approved that are on their way.
But you can go to Belmont.
But I can go to Belmont.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense on any level. That you can go to Belmont, but you can't get them in Waltham.
And you go to Waltham. You go to Newton.
Hurry up.
Newton has about 5.
Of course they do.
Well. Yeah.
Full liberals.
At the end of the day, right? It's people back in the day would get in a car and drive to like Winchendon to buy cannabis, right, from here.
I'm sure.
Like now there's literally like a dispensary in every corner. And when it first started, there weren't a lot of grows. Now there's a ton of grows. And there's a lot of good ones, right? There's a lot of like really good product out there.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Because of the state versus federal situation, all the product has to be actually created in the state that you're consuming it because they can't move it from state lines, right?
So they basically have to grow it here, manufacture it here, and ultimately smoke it here is kind of what the deal is. So here's the situation, right? If you look back in history in Massachusetts, the number one crop in Massachusetts was cranberries for like forever. And they export cranberries internationally, right? The Middle East, Asia, they go everywhere, right? From Massachusetts.
Oh, they like cranberry sauce?
Cranberries go. Ocean sprays all over the place, right? They're bigger than you think, Brendan.
I didn't know.
Honestly, so it's the number one crop.
They like a Cape Cod?
What do you think the Massachusetts number one crop is right now? Weed.
Weed.
Now, if you look at cannabis.
And one to one crop is probably defined by revenue.
If you look at cannabis next to alcohol at this point, Massachusetts is deriving way more from cannabis in terms of taxes than they are from alcohol at this point, just simply because it's a higher tax on the cannabis than it is on the alcohol. But also when you walk into a cannabis store, you walk into a liquor store, you walk out $30, $40, $50, you feel like you spent a lot, right? You walk into a cannabis store, you might spend a couple $100. You have a couple of pre-rolled joints, maybe a couple bags of gummies, and maybe a few seltzers. It's not
like going to Neiman Marcus.
Yeah. And I will tell you, the experience in most dispensaries, if you've been in them,
they should
it's very similar.
Dispensary.
It's similar to a Neiman Marcus, honestly. It's a pretty like kind of you walk in and hi, how are you? What are you looking for? What kind of onset do you? And they really will walk you through things. I mean, most bud tenders they're pretty good for the most part. Yeah. I mean, maybe you've had bad experiences. I don't know, but I've usually had a pretty good experience myself.
So over my head right now.
Yeah. You don't go.
Yeah,
You don't go
you've
to
never been
dispensary,
into a dispensary, Mr. Williams.
I've been into one.
Yeah.
I'll bring you in there, Seth. You want anytime?
Yeah.
I'll
been to
introduce
one
you.
I
around.
want to go to a grow facility. Can you get us into a grow?
I've been as part of my business function. I'm
just intrigued by
they do tours of
Yeah.
grows, but you do actually have to be badged and signed in, and and the whole thing. In fact, good friends of ours, a group over with Bostica over in Lynn. They're in one of the old buildings over there in GE. They have a massive grow, like 100,000 square foot.
Wait, there's a grow in
Lynn.
Lynn?
There's a grow in Lynn coming over that way, but about 100,000 square foot grow. It's huge. And it's unbelievable,
right now.
state of the art. It's amazing. I'll introduce you to the family and bring you over at some point. It's great.
Would
They're
love
gonna have
that.
they're gonna have amazing stuff coming down the pike. It's gonna probably be Q4 of this year. Probably I would say like November, December of this year. You'll see their stuff hitting the market. It's gonna be fantastic.
So for our listeners out there,
Yeah.
who both of them tend to be in real estate,
My mom and dad. They'll
Yeah.
be listening to this one.
your parents,
My folks will listen.
yeah, and our other two listeners,
Sure.
if you wanted to get into the cannabis, it sounds like there's all different avenues too, right? Like you could be a retail, you could be a grower, you could be a Can you be a manufacturer? Like, could I make brownies in my kitchen?
Manufacturing right now is probably the most profitable vertical in the state.
All right, let's talk about that.
So basically what's happening right now is the price of cannabis, the flower itself, has come down.
Because it's
So-
a perishable, or it's a commodity.
Well, no, because there's more.
Oh.
There's more
Like
guys.
pork
More
bellies?
guys producing it.
It's like
There's-
pork bellies.
It is, and so basically it's supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
So Massachusetts used to have 20 grows. Now they have 100 grows. The price is ultimately going to come down, right? But at the end of the day, what happens is they're buying the weed cheaper. The manufacturer is buying it cheaper. So
Yeah.
they're buying cheaper goods that they're able to process into goods for a cheaper price.
Yeah.
So they have a much bigger profit margin at this point in the manufacturing.
Okay.
But there's plenty of manufacturers in Massachusetts, 100%.
So
They
what kind of
basically-
shit are they making?
They're making, like, no word of a lie, ramen's noodles mix, ketchup, mustard.
Ketchup.
They're making macaroons.
The
They're
CCC
making
must love the ketchup.
macaroons, ketchup. They have like a almost like a Chick-fil-A sauce. There's literally hot sauce. There's everything imaginable. Margaritas, High Tide. Those guys do a fantastic job. They have 3 flavor profiles. They're 5 milligrams a can. They're fantastic. There's a watermelon. There's like a jalapeno. In a traditional, and they're like off the charts good.
And where are they doing? Like, where is that being manufactured?
That's being manufactured out in like they're done by like Temple Hill Collective. I want to say they're in like Clinton or Orange or somewhere. It's usually like out in the central part of the state, western part of the states, where it's cheaper to get the real estate, right?
Right.
So if you want to have like a 200,000 square foot facility,
Yeah.
it's not happening in like a Wellesley or like a Winchester or something like that, right?
All right.
So you got to find somewhere that has that kind of level of industry,
Yeah.
where they can get workers for cheap and they can basically get rent for cheap. Is kind of what they're looking
So
for.
this is bringing jobs to Massachusetts.
On 100%, absolutely.
And what kind of? So if I'm like making
all
brownies,
level
that you're gonna,
jobs too,
Yeah.
like manufacturing all the way to like CFO type positions, CEO type positions. Yeah,
So what? Shit! I just totally lost my train of thought.
making brownies.
Yeah,
You're a
oh,
brownie
making
maker.
brownies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
house.
How much square
You're
footage do you need for that?
It depends on how big you want it, like how big of a product you have and how much you're going to distribute, right? So like, it's a couple of groups that we deal with, like I was telling you about Good Feels, right?
Yeah.
Jason Raposo, the guy's awesome, right? He basically is making like a craft seltzer. And they come in these awesome little, like vibrant, like beautiful little bottles, and everything about it's awesome. The onset's great, the product's great. The problem is he gets on shelves and he literally sells out. He literally cannot keep the products on the shelves because he's a smaller guy, right?
Yeah.
And then you get some of
So
these
he needs a
guys-
loan from you
he
to build his
needs
capacity.
100% or investments or something like that. Now the other thing is sometimes you get the market just flooded with crap, right? So it's like you get like a Bud Light or like a Miller Light, right? Like there's a
What's wrong with Miller Lite?
there's a spot for it, right? Like
It's the champagne of beers.
Look at
no?
this, right?
Or is
That's
that
the
Michelob?
that's the highlight.
we've all gone to Gillette Stadium. We've all drinking like 25 Miller Lights, right? There's always a place for it, right? And if you're gonna sit on your couch, right, and you're gonna enjoy life,
Yeah.
you're probably getting a Trillium, or you're probably getting like a
Yeah,
Treehouse.
yeah, yeah.
You're probably getting something more craft, right? So at the end of the day, there is room for large MSO, which is multiple state operator. There is room for that kind of like more mass-produced product for people, and then there's room for the craft products. I think if you see somebody with a really good craft product right now,
Yeah.
when things start getting weeded out, some of the not
Well
so
played.
good
Well
craft
played.
beers,
Yeah.
some of the not so good craft beers, some of the not so good craft weed will get weeded out. But if you look at it, I mean, some of these guys are really good and they're going to be around forever. Like Nova Farms out in Framingham does a fantastic job. Trade Routes down in Wareham, guys like that, they just do awesome jobs at what they do. Hudson Botanicals is another guy, Brian Adams. He wows me with what he can do from a manufacturing standpoint. So there's a lot of really good groups out there.
So when, I've always sort of thought like when this goes federal,
yes,
and you can ship it across state lines,
the government will probably find a lot of ways to screw it up, I would bet. But
I'm sure. But do you think these guys that have invested in production, invested in, facilities, are they going to be eaten up by Seagrams and Coca-Cola? And like, do you see the market? Like, what are you as an investor, positioning yourself for this? I would assume it's eventual, for sort of ability to go multi-state.
The state's not going to be able to flick a switch like tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Because the long and the short of it is Mass derives a ton of taxes from cannabis companies, right?
Right.
So like they let somebody put in 100,000 square foot grow, right? They want to ensure that company's doing well because they want to ensure that tax revenue. So if they put in 100,000 square foot grow and then next month they go, hey, it's federally legal. We're going to let you ship it in from Arizona, California, Florida, wherever, right? You're going to basically cripple these guys that are based in Mass that are doing good taxable business for Mass by saying we're going to outsource it to like an Arizona, right? So,
I was thinking the opposite.
My
Like they built the infrastructure and then they get acquired and ship it everywhere else.
Well, that's the thing is you could, but the cost of labor in Mass, right? Like think about like how much production, right, is like taking place in Mass. It's not, right?
It's like manufacturing
Nebraska,
overseas.
Oklahoma.
It's no
Like,
different.
it's going to be out somewhere where like you have a lot of land and cheaper labor. Like Massachusetts, you can't live on $400,000 as a couple. It's like you're like bumping by, for God's sake, you know what I mean? So if you can get cheaper labor, like in Arizona, something like that, you could flood the market with Arizona weed and you'd put all these guys in Mass in a bad spot. And they've just funded millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of grow outs. So like, I just don't think the government here in Mass is going to it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be a gradual, maybe in 2025, we'll look at this. And it's going to kind of be a gradual wait in.
And this is a dumb question, but like, okay, all that makes a ton of sense, and I completely get it. But if the federal government wants to legalize,
right,
they can 100%. But like,
and we're just going to get caught holding the bag.
Exactly, but as a state, I would assume, and again, I'm not a lawyer.
The
I would
puns
assume
are
there are state level restrictions that you could say to yourself, like just like we do, like with guns and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
So, like I went down to South Carolina with my family. We went to Isle of Palms. It was awesome, gorgeous. Like right outside of Charleston. Dude, you could walk into literally a supermarket, like not a supermarket, but like a Target. You walk out with a gun the same day, right? So like states have different.
You'd overlay something more restrictive.
Correct. So I think the state would basically say, yes, it is federally legal, but no, we're not going to let people just flood the market without a state weed.
Right.
You know what I mean? There has to be some disincentive, the tax or whatever it has to be.
Yep. No, that makes a ton of sense. Thanks for clearing that up.
So not a great investment, right? Like if you're a real estate investor,
if you are in Massachusetts, sure. Yeah. Because I think even to that point, there's some.
The other thing too, Brendan,
protection.
Is honestly. Even if you let people come in from out of state, and it's usually like going to be like a multi-state, conglomerate, multi-state operator, it's not like a Treehouse beer. It's not like a Trillium beer, right? Like people will go out of their way to buy Trillium. People will go out of their way to buy Treehouse. If you have a product like that at Mass right now, people are always going to go out of their way to find that particular Tower 3, weed. It's fantastic. Or, so-and-so makes a, paper crane. There's a million of them out there that I could quote that have a certain strain that you like or a certain group that you like. And people say, oh, I'll go out of my way to get that. I don't care about getting the Miller Lite. I can buy that anywhere. You know what I mean?
So if your buddy knocks on your door and says, I need $100,000 to develop my manufacturing for my craft, whatever it is, jump on that. That's a good place to invest?
I would first have to ask my wife before. But no, at the end of the day, they're all different. Here's what I've seen in cannabis is the teams that do the best have like a financial guy. Yeah. They have like a weed guy. They have like a flower guy. So you kind of have to have both. It's like a stool, right? You have to have both sides of the stool covered.
So who's the third person?
It's a great question.
Because your stool's going to fall over.
I would say like your infrastructure. So I would say like an accountant or like a guide, a trusted advisor, like an attorney, somebody like that. I would say would be like your person to pull it together, almost like your COO. You know what I mean? But I feel like there are groups out there that have airtight like business plans. They're like, I know how to penetrate a market. I know how to sell soda. I can sell cannabis.
Sure, yeah.
But they don't know that the product that they have stinks. You know
That's
what I mean?
interesting.
Or
My
like you could
buddy
find a guy
from
who's
high
really
school just left a big beer manufacturer for a weed company,
Yeah.
and
It's
Same
not as
thing.
uncommon as you would think,
Yeah.
honestly. It's just not. And I mean, you need somebody that knows good weed, and you need somebody that knows good business practices.
He
But
knows
they're,
both.
They're up against so much against it, like 280, with their tax situation. They have essentially can't write off anything, So like,
Federally.
you have these guys, right? They're paying like
so wait, do they have to pay federal taxes?
they're paying obscene amounts of taxes, and they're not able to write anything off. So at the end of the day, you look at these guys, and they're like, they want to make all these charitable contributions at the end of the day, and it's like they still do. They're just not getting a benefit on it, which is lousy. I mean, it's like I understand hitting somebody with a 20% tax, but give me some benefit. Let me write off a couple bucks here and there. So, when you said the things about the rescheduling of cannabis, kind of like just to Schedule 3, whatever, and that has all yet to shake out, and you'll see a million pros and cons on it from both sides. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a long ways down the road. It's like federal legalizing banking.
All right, so there's still time for people to make money in mass.
100%.
All right.
I was going to say real quick, if kind of to Brendan's point, like if someone came to you looking to potentially get into this business, and they were knowledgeable, what would be some basic advice that you would give them? Because I do think a lot of people are curious
Sure.
about this
Definitely.
from a diversification standpoint. And I do
Sure.
agree with you. We have several clients together
Mm-hmm.
that have attempted or are slightly dabbling in the space simply out of real estate diversification.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you give them for some advice?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's you always want to tread lightly. You always want to kind of surround yourself with good advisors, right? From like a legal standpoint, a tax standpoint, like from a real estate standpoint. You do have to do your homework, right? Like if you're somebody who's just getting into it, right? My mom's 79-year-old Italian woman, right? Like my mother-in-law is 75. She owns real estate in Waltham, right? She doesn't.
Any
really,
thoughts of selling?
She I'm never sell that place ever. But at the end of the day, right? It's like
Would it be a good dispensary?
You do. When Waltham won't be open for another 10 years at the rate we're going. But no. So it's just you gotta really be well informed. I would always say, like with any investment, it's almost like be prepared that there could potentially be a loss, but there could be potential to be wild gains, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you get in with the right group and
It's
the
like anything
product,
else.
Hits, have the propensity to make money is there. Like you can clearly rent out a spot to a cannabis company for more than you can rent out a spot to a sub shop.
No
You know
doubt.
what I mean?
No
But at
doubt.
the end of the day, and also they're probably going to do improvements on the property. They're probably going to, they're probably going to do a lot for you. So, I mean, if you ask me as a person who owns real estate, be cautious, but don't be frightful. I mean, there's really no need for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely can get in. You definitely can make some money renting out to cannabis companies for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
I think and I know we were talking about it offline, but just the two that are top of mind locally, there's one right in Orient Heights. I mean, they did a complete rebuild of a storefront, complete physical redesign of the, because there's this sleekness, kind of like, I forget the word you were using, but there's like a certain brand that goes with it. And same thing with this place was a dump on
the old Avis?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It was a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it was vacant for a very long time, and geez, they must have put in millions into that building just to get it to be on brand for them. And obviously, to your point, if I'm the owner of that real estate, you've significantly improved my
100%.
value. And if I now want to go sell that piece of real estate with a probably
tenant in it
probably
for 10 years, 12 years.
and I got to
however long,
believe that they probably are doing some resemblance of a commercial lease that has revenue sharing, because there's some risk maybe, because that's a way to do commercial leases where maybe you take a percent or something like that as additional rent.
I mean, there's stores out there doing a month,
millions.
1.2 million.
Yeah.
1.1
Oh, wow.
A month, 500,000. Like some guy calls me, he goes, I don't really have good numbers. I said, what do your numbers look like? He goes, it's like $300,000 a month. I go,
Oh, geez, that's
I wouldn't say no to that.
I would beat a sharp stick in the
Yeah.
eye, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, just simply because of the limitations on the banking and because of all the costs associated with it and the heightened regulatory environment, they're not clearing what a normal business would clear either. So if you just went in and you guys like, we're realtors, right? Like, sure, like almost every penny you make, aside from like your clearing and your this and your that. I mean, but there's not like the expenses associated with that. You know,
But
what I mean?
let's
So if you say
take
to $300,000 in sales, right? You're not clearing, $50,000. You're clearing more than $50,000 for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So
But let's take Seth's example.
Sure.
Right. So he's got a piece of property. There's a business in it.
Yep.
It's paying, a hefty rent.
Sure.
And he goes to sell that building. Has he just limited his pool of buyers because of the tenant in the building.
He's limited his pool of who will give him a mortgage.
Right.
And I just told him prior to coming on,
Yeah.
if you own a building,
Yeah.
and you have like 3 or 4 like mixed use commercial, you have like 3 or 4 guys on the bottom, you have some units up on top, and you have your loan with take your pick, right? Like Salem 5 or Eastern or whoever, right? They could come to you and say, we just noticed you have a cannabis company in there.
Yeah.
We don't play in cannabis. You better go to Main Street Bank or some bank that's going to lend you to cover this, because we won't bank you if you have a cannabis client in there.
So crazy.
And the crazy thing too, like I was telling Seth, is a lot of it too with banking, it's based on how you're deriving your income.
Right.
So if you're a realtor and you say, I'm just going to identify real estate property for cannabis companies, and that winds up being like more than 50% of your revenue is coming from, Curaleaf and Acreage and all these companies, right? And the bank sees it. They very well could go to you. I just had a guy, he's a recruiter. He's a headhunter.
Yeah.
He headhunts for cannabis. He doesn't anything to do with cannabis. He just places people in cannabis jobs. Like, you have 14 days to close your account. He's a headhunter.
That's ridiculous.
He's not touching weed in any way, shape, or form. He's a headhunter.
He's an ancillary business.
He's just like if you guys placed a client into like a store and you collected a fee for that, and there was a significant amount of those people.
Yeah.
They may very well come to you and go, you are a real estate company, but you are engaging in cannabis. We want you out of the bank.
That's something
Wow.
else.
And that's all levels.
And then we call you.
Yeah, you come. I'm happy to take you.
So Main Street loves those clients.
We love them. Take them all the time, every day. Even your employees. Like you have an employee that works a bud tender, and you're in the bud tender.
They can't put their money in a regular bank.
A lot of times the bank sees it coming from a company that's cannabis company.
So now I have to change a bank as an employee to a different bank because that's where I work.
Wow, it feels like discrimination.
Honest to God, and that's the whole thing, and it's a stigma.
Well, it's ironic. I think what's allowed in alcohol,
right,
and what is still not. And I understand laws and whatnot, but
totally.
I mean, come on. Think 100 years from now, we're going to be talking about this like it was prohibition.
Is that employee also going to have a problem getting a loan, their own mortgage? Like if they wanted to buy a house,
they most likely will.
So you'd have to find unless they're with Main Street Bank.
Yeah, you'd have to find a bank that's cannabis friendly. The way most of the banks work on that is this.
So realtors, hold on, let's parse that out for a minute, right? So realtors, you're working with a buyer who is out shopping, and you learn they work for a cannabis company.
Sure.
Like you want to make sure before you get too deep that they have a lender that is friendly to cannabis, I would assume.
100%.
Would you ever have thought to think about that?
I don't think so.
Never.
Yeah. So Main Street and I guess some other bank. Do you do residential mortgage?
So here's how we do it. If you're an employee that works for the company and you're getting a W-2, we will use that income towards your income for your mortgage.
For the underwriting,
correct. If you are a owner of the business, they generally don't factor in a lot of that income, just simply because like you're the controlling interest in that business, right? So a lot of times, and most of those people, as I said, they're builders, they're restaurateurs, they own commercial property, they have a lot of lines of income. They generally can phase out what they're making. Then they're usually not taking a check either. If you're an owner, usually not taking a check off the business anyway. It's usually the profitability or however it's worked out. But
or what about like the family real estate? This family owns a lot of real estate.
Exactly.
They happen to get a tenant that was a dispensary or a commercial producer, and they go to sell and they realize that they can't sell to everybody now because there's no loan. So
I mean, you really could. You just have to find somebody that would take on that risk of having a cannabis tenant, which there are banks that will do that for sure.
But it's a smaller. It's not every lender.
It's something to think about for sure. Yeah, no, it's like 12 or 13 banks out of probably hundreds in Massachusetts, right? There's going to be hundreds of banks, right?
Blow our mind a little more. What other things are we not thinking about that are huge problems that us and our listeners should be on the lookout for, like when we're transacting in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, from a real estate standpoint, those are pretty much it. Do you have a cannabis tenant? Is there a cannabis tenant that wants to rent from you? These are things you'd have to be cognizant of. If you want to sell a property with a lease on it, how that's going to look, what the complexion of that's going to look like to somebody that's ultimately trying to buy the building. But again, I wouldn't shy away from it. I mean, you certainly can derive more money from a cannabis company than you could from a, guy selling, chains or, sneakers or baseball cards or whatever, right? But, it's more intricate. It's more involved for sure. There's more regulation. But it's not doable, and it can definitely be fruitful, 100%.
Cool. What's one of the coolest things you've seen, sort of in the business, on the cannabis side, or like what's coming down the pike here?
I mean, I think the products are, they just blow your mind, right? There's always something new, right? There's like literally like you name
ketchup.
You name it,
hot
it's out
sauce.
there. Yeah. The other thing is and this holds true for any line of business, right? The other thing would be the AI involved in it, the automation involved in it, right? And it's just like, you come on some of these companies' websites and, it'll blow your mind. There's like so many fintech companies and so many automated companies now just to make life easier and business easier on the cannabis side. It's like anything, it's like real estate. It's like legal. It's like
is
really
fintech
anything.
getting into cannabis?
Fintech is in cannabis. There's multiple groups out there that do it. There's one group out there, for example, Mosaic. Mosaic offers like almost like a Starbucks like online ordering app. If you go to a lot of these guys' websites, they're kind of like leave a lot to be desired. You have to scroll through like 1,000 different, specials, and then it's hard to find, are they characterized right? Are they under tinctures? They should be under drinks. Like they just
a lot about cannabis.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I do work in the business.
Yeah,
I've been at it for a while. I tell people all the time, like I talk to people that work in my business and I'm like, do you use the product? And they're like, no. I'm like, how do you sit with somebody in the business and have like a conversation if you're not,
there's no passion.
Look, man, like I'm not sitting in there like the guy in like Revenge of the Nerds. Remember like when Booger goes in and he meets the guy and he's like, smoking all the weed.
You're not like rolling up like Cheech and Chong.
I mean, I'm not like Willie Nelson, right? But like at the end of the day, you kind of have to, and I say even like an alcohol rep, right? Like say you're coming to a bar and you're like, yeah, this is the best vodka ever. I don't drink. It's like, well, how do you know if it's the best, the best drink ever? So, for me, I think that's, I've seen a lot of wild stuff. I mean, the fintech stuff coming along is fantastic. It always wows me. The products, like I said, like macaroons and like you can make your own pound cake now and all this, like they're coming out with restaurants. I think social consumption is going to be another, frontier that we're going to see.
But Massachusetts frowns on that, right?
I'll tell you the hardest part about social consumption. Social consumption basically is you get pulled over, you're driving a car, you're drunk, right? They can tell you right away, all right, Seth, your alcohol content at this point, whatever. They know. They can give you a test. Just definitively tell you how much you've drinking that night, right?
Right.
If you're smoking weed, you could smoke 3-4 a month in advance.
And it's still in your system.
It's still going to be in your system in some way, shape, or form. So I think the real issue with the cannabis is the enforcement of the social consumption. And I think a lot of people, like for me in particular, I'd rather enjoy it in my house because I feel like if I do it, I can like fully just check out and relax. Like I feel like if I'm at like a bar or like a social consumption area, now I have to figure out like, there's people there. There's people you don't know. You have to get in your car. You have to, call an Uber. It's just, for me, it's not what I like. But like a younger, like a millennial, like somebody in their 20s, they like that. And like you think about the onset of the drinks now, right? Like the seltzers.
Yeah.
That's huge. Like think about walking into Gillette Stadium, right?
Right.
Now you're probably going to get the crappiest like Budweiser of like seltzer, right? Like they're going to probably partner up with like some massive, who knows who, Corona, who the hell knows. But at the end of the day, you're going to be able to at some point drink a cannabis seltzer like in a pro sporting venue in the United States. Like
Interesting.
Think about that consumption. 65,000 people at like a Taylor Swift concert, right? That's probably a bad example, but I'm going to go see Metallica next year. That might be a better example.
That's a better example.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like that's wild. Like think about like when you're my age. Think when we were like in high school.
I know.
Did you ever think you were going to buy a weed? How the hell was it getting into a seltzer? And were they going to sell it at Gillette Stadium?
Yeah,
No
definitely
way,
was not on my horizon there.
No. So those things kind of like wow me all the time. The science behind it is wild. Like sativa, indica, quick onset, longer onset. Like, some of them have like an immediate response. Some of them you take a gummy, it doesn't respond for 45 minutes to an hour. Some are immediate onset, right?
Yeah.
The seltzers usually respond pretty quickly. Like if you were to smoke a joint, it would respond pretty quickly. But like the fact that they can get a strain to have certain physical like attributes for you, like how you're going to respond. Gee, you're going to feel like you're going to melt into the couch, or gee, you're going to be happy and funny and laughy.
So at scale, how do you have the scientists that like can figure that shit out when you can only work in Massachusetts, right? So like,
so we're lucky because we're in probably one of the heaviest, laden states in the country with smart people and scientists and doctors.
And they're like, I'd rather work for a weed company and make less and just do cool stuff.
I make more.
That's the funniest thing is like a lot of these guys, like you go in and they're like young kids, like in their 20s. And they're like, they would knock you over with the level
they're
of
like, I have a double doctorate from MIT, but like
dude,
I said no to BlackRock and I'm working here.
I played football at Union for 4 years. Like, I'm never the smartest guy in the room, like ever, right? But like at the end of the day, like these kids are smart and they're like, I'm getting into something cutting edge that's going to be able to help people. Like, and they truly in their heart, it's encouraging to watch, right? It's like better than watching like big pharmaceuticals go, we could make billions of dollars off this, right? Like you see people in cannabis, usually the mindset is this is going to help a patient, or this is going to really give like a client something that they can enjoy, like an enjoyable experience. Maybe it'll help with, anxiety or arthritis or who the heck knows what, right? But like they feel like they're really out there to like help people. Like whereas like pharmaceuticals, I feel like they're just out for the next paycheck.
No, they're there to help people too.
Yeah.
Are there stock options?
Yeah, exactly.
Like when you work for a cannabis company, do you get stock options?
You can.
Okay.
So, and you were saying like raising money, right? So getting a loan's not the easiest thing in the world, right? If you're a cannabis company, most of you have like under a year, sales, and what bank's going to look at you as a startup. They're going to want personal guarantees, that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, if you were to go out and do like a fundraise, a lot of these people are just doing like fundraisers, like personal, like friends and family.
Yeah.
There's a couple of crowd raising, like a fun surf, like almost like you can like a crowd surf for cannabis. And there's one group out there, I can't remember the name of them for the life of me, Mainvest, I think it is. And those guys actually went to Union, and they do a pretty good job with like.
It's all about Union.
Yeah, the crowdsourcing. Yeah.
Bring it on, Schenectady.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, you wouldn't want to.
Have you been to Schenectady?
No.
There's no reason to.
Yeah. But a kid in my carpool went to Union.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They changed the name from the Dutchman to the Garnet Chargers. So it was
because Dutchman was racist.
Dutchman, I guess, in some way, shape, or form was offensive. Right? I don't know what, but I'm so like old and uncool. I don't know what's cool or not.
It's hard to keep up with it.
It's hard. Like guys like you or me are better just sit quietly.
Yeah.
But I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, I think the millennials, they're a more healthy like group of people than like guys our age for sure. You know what I mean? So I feel like they don't drink a lot. Like if you watch them, they're like,
well, the sale of alcohol has dropped dramatically since the legalization of marijuana, right?
Yeah, you watch these guys and they're like, I had a White Club and it had 3 grams of sugar and it made my tummy feel bad all the way until like Tuesday, and like I couldn't go to the gym. And I'm like, dude. Like I was thinking, like my days in college, man. Like, and it wasn't even like Bud Light, dude. It was like golden.
It was like I had that whole bottle
golden
of
anniversary
Jack
or like
Daniels.
Natural Light or something like disgusting, right? But like
Natty Light.
at the end of the day,
or Natty Ice was always good. I liked the ice. It had that
Keystone?
extra bump.
Yeah,
Keystone. I used to buy those for $9.
Or like
UNH Natty Ice and Natty Light were the big
that's what we had.
drink of
Yeah,
choice.
they were like
$30
$4 for a case. Yeah, it was ridiculous, but.
It was also the
day,
90s.
If you look at these kids though now, like they're like well-oiled machines. Like we played sports in college. I had kids like.
Did you play football in college?
I did, yeah. So we would have kids that were.
Hey, you did?
You didn't know? We would have kids that would. They would go like before a game, and they beat like pizza, burgers, like chicken sandwiches. I'm like, do you have a game in like 10 minutes? Like I'd be eating like a piece of like dry toast and tea. Like I'd be so nervous. I always had like a stomach ache all the time. I'd be so nervous. But like these kids now, they could like. They're like well-oiled machines. They're not drinking. They're not,
well,
doing
they're
like
saving their
hard
money
drugs.
to invest in cannabis.
I would hope that's what they're doing. That would keep a roof over my kid's head. That'd be good for me.
So if the listeners got like, I don't know, 50 grand, 100 grand, they want to drop into a cannabis business. Where's the good choice to start looking?
Do we have them just call you and you can help broker the deal?
For 100%, I'm happy to do that. I mean, I know literally thousands of people in the space. What I would shy away from is going to buy like an ETF. So like you go buy like an ETF.
They have
like
cannabis ETFs?
They have 100%. So you go buy some like Canadian ETF. It's all like massive, like multi-state operators and like, national companies and things like that. And, you look at the returns on them and they're not great. Like for me, you're better off finding somebody locally, wholly owned, like a guy from here, a guy from the North Shore, a guy from Metro West, whatever, a lady. It could be, I say guys all the time because it's like, that's you guys. Like that's how I grew up. And I was actually called out on that. I was doing a presentation. And I was on like Western New York, and I'm like, I just say you guys all the time. I'm from Boston. It is what it is. I'm not trying to be like, I have a daughter, my wife, I love my mother, my mother-in-law. Like it's not like that. It's just how I talk. But yes, it could be a lady as well. But at the end of the day, it's just, I'd find somebody locally, wholly here that you could say, I know this person. They've been successful running another business, or maybe they're already in cannabis and they're successful doing cannabis. Let me go with them. Let me throw them 50 grand. Let me throw them 100
product. You would go more to a product.
I would either like
sales.
a dispensary. I could do a product. I mean, I could do a grow if it was right. I mean, you could go any one of those 3 verticals and do well.
Delivery.
If you get in with the right crew. The deliveries is coming along, right? So they basically gave delivery licenses to people that were social equity, early in the game. And they kind of gave them like a 2-year like exclusivity, on the delivery license. And a lot of times with the social equity, what I think is lousy is the state's giving you like some preferential treatment on the licensing, but they're not giving these guys funding or these ladies funding. Right?
Why, it takes money to do this?
Well, to start a business, and you would have no idea how much it would cost you to start a cannabis business. But at the end of the day, there's guys out there like killing it, right? Like a Chris Fevry or a guy like that, right? He does a great job at the delivery. But, he'll tell you too, like there's a lot of rules in it. Like you need 2 people in the car to make the delivery, right? Like imagine Domino shows up, they have 2 guys in the car.
Doesn't
right?
sound cost effective.
Like Drizzly doesn't send 2 guys out to deliver the booze.
Do
What
they
are
deliver
like
to the beach?
This kid's not going to smoke a joint in the car. He's
The
delivering
boat?
you weed, right? Like, come on,
Boat delivery.
So the delivery, I think, is a little tough because I don't think they've given a lot of these guys the wherewithal to build their business. What is it?
Danger for the passengers, not for the driver. We adhere to strict promotion of safe driving of boats and cars,
BUI.
ATVs, bikes,
Totally.
all the things. Hey Seth, how are we doing on our agenda? Did we hit all of our topics?
Not really. No,
Did we hit any of them?
Not really. But it's fine.
We had a lot of fun though.
We did have a lot of fun.
I'll come back on for another hour next week. Let me know. Yeah.
We're gonna head towards wrapping it up. So I do have a quick little segment we like to do called underrated, overrated.
100%.
Right. So I just say the name of this place or thing, and you give us your opinion if it's underrated or overrated.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So you started with something, so I wrote it down earlier. Let's. Sorry for the East Boston folk. Let's hit it with Santarpios.
Santarpios. I'd say it's rated perfectly.
No, you have to pick one.
All right. I'll say it's a little overrated.
Okay. Good.
ATM machines
I'm not getting
and
out alive.
dispensaries.
Anything specific that makes it slightly overrated?
I just had a bad experience this weekend, but it was traveled. I had to bring it 30 minutes, so I kind of would say normally
pizza
it's a
just
very
doesn't
good,
travel.
normally
No,
it's a
it
very good
doesn't.
experience, to be quite frank with you.
Unless
But
you're Domino's.
I was a huge
agree.
Bianchi's guy down on Revere Beach.
So
Huge.
Bianchi's.
I would say Bianchi's
still
for
there.
me. Bianchi's for
It
me
is.
over anything else.
Yeah.
But they moved it. They went to Renzo's. They came back.
Yeah.
Where are they now? They're somewhere.
They
have their own
Bill.
place.
So
Okay.
it was Renzo's, Bianchi's at Renzo's.
Yes.
And then now it's Bianchi's at Sandbar.
It's Sandbar, correct.
It's
But
pretty
It's
good.
back to
I would
normal.
I would say it's underrated.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would
I'm
too.
I am a big Bianchi's guys, and to be frank with you, I used to go back in the day. A place called Danny's Hot Dogs was set like way in the back, like almost like where like the banana boat is.
Oh yeah.
Danny's Hot Dogs would blow your socks off. They gave you like the foot long. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That should have been their slogan.
Yeah.
Mustard will blow your socks off. Mustard, relish, and onions all around, all day, every day. My friends from New York, you got to put meat. No. Mustard, relish, and onions. Never ketchup ever.
Bianchi's. is
What if
cool
it's
now.
weed ketchup?
If it's
there
weed
you
ketchup,
go.
I'll throw it in. Why not?
All right.
Yeah. I'll drink a packet on the way.
What a world we're gonna live in a few years.
Yeah.
ATM machines.
Oh, hold on, I'm still on Bianchi's.
Fuck.
If so, you haven't been to Bianchi's recently?
I've
So you
not been recently, but I
So
would
it's
like
interesting because you can go there. Sandbar has a full bar menu,
to. Okay.
and they'll you sit down. So
Sure.
like we'll take our kids there.
Yeah.
We'll get a couple beers, like a side of fries.
Sure.
Your bill's like $12.
Yeah, you can't beat
And then
it.
you have to walk over to the Bianchi side.
Yeah.
And order
And
pizza.
order your pizza.
Yeah. And then you go back and sit down and eat
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a very interesting experience.
Totally.
I feel bad for the servers too.
As a
like,
kid, you always had to like when I was a kid, we come up here for like Revere Beach. Like
Yeah.
we'd jump in like my cousins like 89 IROC, T-tops.
Obviously.
Yeah, we throw on some like
Yeah.
White Snake and we'd hit the road. You know what I mean? But
I sure do.
yeah, we go get a couple of Bianchi's pies. You'd be fighting the seagulls off, like throwing rights and lefts. I mean, but listen, there were no better days, right? It was unbelievable.
Underrated, overrated, Revere Beach.
It's getting way better. I'd say now it's probably underrated.
Wow.
Kelly's
I had
roast
a
beef.
good friend of mine owns a couple restaurants over there. Mike Aldi owns Drift and
yeah.
a couple of other restaurants over there. He's been a long time restaurant guy.
Cut.
Drift's pretty good. The food's pretty good.
That's
Yeah.
pretty good. I like
Cut's
that a
pretty
lot.
good.
Yeah.
All right, we'll let you ask.
Kelly's.
They went down to Florida.
They
They're in
just
Florida
opened in
now.
Naples.
Did you see that?
I did see that.
I listen. It's almost sacrilege to say like you don't like Kelly's. I mean, I could tell you the roast beefs. For me, I can find a lot better roast beefs around, quite frankly.
No
Yeah.
question.
But
about that.
yeah, I mean, relative to a regular roast beef place here in New England, I'd say that they're overrated for roast beef.
All right.
I agree.
ATM machines and dispensaries.
I think they're a necessary evil. I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of ambiguity and some malfunctioning with PIN debit machines and cashless ATMs and the like. So I think you're always better suited to have a cash machine right in the store.
Happy Valley, underrated or overrated?
Happy Valley might have the best super lemon haze strain I've ever smoked in my entire
Sounds
life of
underrated.
smoking. But they're very heavy on their product. Not that's a bad thing, not that that's a good thing. But
Like their own product?
They grow, they manufacture, and they do sell out of their own stores.
Yeah.
Which is a good it's called vertically integrated. That's a good way to do it, to make more money
Higher
for you, more
Yes.
profitability. And look, they do a lot of good things. They do a lot of things good. Right?
Private label, we used to call that.
But
in
at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, you don't do everything good. So maybe broaden the menu. But other than that, they do a great job.
Sounds like underrated.
What
Is that
about weed
underrated?
ketchup?
I'd say underrated. Yeah, they're pretty good. Happy Valley's
That's
pretty
definitely going to be underrated because it's not even a thing
good.
yet.
So weed ketchup is being produced as we speak by a group up on the North Shore in Gloucester called Ocean Breeze. And Ocean Breeze
Weird
is
name for a ketchup
It
brand.
is.
Yeah,
It
so-
sounds like a porn.
But they make all kinds of amazing things in their kitchen. It's a group called the Schwartz family, and they do an amazing
in
job.
their kitchen? How
They
is
do-
that legal?
They're,
Not
they're,
at their house.
they're manufacturing kitchen in their,
Oh,
their
okay.
store.
Like right next to Gorton's Fish.
Yes, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
All right.
So for your fish sticks, you can.
my last underrated, overrated,
All right.
which this is a tough one to rate, I guess. Schenectady, New York.
Oh man,
Overrated.
you could never say overrated, dude. It's like I don't know which way you go. Like it's
Who's
like
got
it's,
a rating on it?
yeah, it's literally
It's
like
definitely not underrated.
I will say this, from 1998 until now, and I've gone back recently for like home. I go to Saratoga all the time. I was in Saratoga three times this year.
Saratoga's great.
Saratoga is like my love. Like people in Mass are like, "What the hell is Saratoga?" I'm like, "Dude, it's a slice of heaven." But I would say Schenectady, you
nice.
can't say overrated or underrated because it's come up a
'Cause it's
lot.
not rated?
It's come up a lot. I'd say it's
Didn't
underrated.
El
at this point.
Presidente just buy a house in
Saratoga for like
Saratoga?
12 mil or
Yeah.
something like that,
And he's
yeah.
going to rip it down.
And then he beat the hell out of the guy in Somerville,
Yeah.
the pizza owner. It's like,
Yeah.
dude,
That guy was such a dick.
the owner was too,
Yeah.
but here's my thing, right? Is somebody really basing a decision on where to eat pizza from some like 47-year-old guy from Swampscott?
He's
Like,
46.
He's yeah. So like, what's the story? Like, you're
I
gonna
think-
really
I
you're
think
gonna
so.
go or not go to pizza based on that guy?
Well,
I mean, some people,
they
yes.
say that there's
Look at a fat guy like me. Like, where does this guy?
There's
eat? He
never-
probably has
Right,
good
he is
taste,
skinny.
right?
He's always
thin.
been a
Yeah.
skinny
Look at
kid.
a guy like me
Yeah.
for food advice. You know, come on.
one could say there's no bad press.
I agree, 100%.
So like I've
They
never
said
even,
he was sold out the next day. They
I've
said he
never
couldn't
even
get in
heard.
there.
I've never
Yeah.
even heard of that pizza
No,
place.
why would you? Davis
Um,
Square, Somerville, Dragon Pizza. The hell's that?
Yeah.
You know, the
So
guy had a tucked-in Star Wars shirt on.
it
You
was
see
ter-
him?
it was too
It was a
small. Let's
mess.
be clear.
Well, yeah, let's be honest, right? I mean, like, come on. El
He
Prez
likes
just-
the pizza.
And the best thing, El Prez had just come out of a five and dime across the street. Some
Yeah.
like he buys in he got like an old Marcus Camby shirt in there, like some
Yeah.
like thrift store or something.
Don't you think part of that was just a stunt?
It seemed kind of staged. I'll be honest with you.
All of
I really
it?
think a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean,
Because the whole thing was just very confrontational.
Yeah,
It's
right
more-
out of the jump too.
More so from the business owner than it was Dave. I think Dave was just being Dave.
yeah.
But yeah, very strange.
Yeah. But hey, look, dude, he's a genius. If that's the case,
What about
he
the
got himself
Encore?
tens of thousands of dollars worth of sales. Encore, I've never been in. I'll be honest, I've never set foot in the place in my entire life.
huh.
And I know
I'm going to
that-
talk to Joe.
I know, I know Fratelli, like I know Nick personally, those
Overrated.
guys, but it's just I mean, I've never been in. I've never been in there.
All right,
No.
that wraps my
Yeah, that was great.
Underrated, overrated. Always good.
Were there
conversation.
any other segments you wanted to?
No, you just got to close this out, bud.
All right. So, Brandon, one last question.
Yeah.
If you were to, boil down your next 12 months into one word,
Yeah.
what word would that be and why?
For me personally, or for the cannabis business?
Probably for you and your business.
I would say for cannabis, it's going to be tumultuous. I would say would be the word. That doesn't mean that guys are there's going to be good companies always here. The good companies are continue to thrive. They're going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to expand. And bad companies are going to get weeded out. I mean, that's like any business, right? Like you look back in the day, we had like 1 million like frozen yogurt stands. Who the hell's like $30? They weighed it, remember? Your kids are going in there like, yeah, I got a vanilla ice cream with 42 pounds of gummy bears. It costs $68. I'm like, what was it called?
Orange
something.
leaf.
Orange leaf.
I
Yeah, or like
loved
the other
orange
one,
leaf.
Java berry.
They
I'm
turned-
like, dude, they weren't even
Java
going. I'm
berry
like,
sucked.
Did
Orange
Orange
leaf
Who's buying
was
this
amazing.
shit?
All
Like,
the orange leaf
me.
locations
So
turned
it's-
into orange theory.
It's
Yeah.
they
did.
They
Or
ate too
crumble-
much. They ate too much yogurt and went
crumble
orange theory.
cookie.
Yeah, crumble. A 42-pound cookie. But at the end of the day, right? Like, I think there's going to be good companies
Cookie
left.
Monster
and I think
blows
there's-
them away
I love
anyway.
the Cookie Monster.
Cookie
truck.
Monster
They used to
should
park outside
partner-
of my outside of
they
my
should
company.
partner with a weed company.
They have. They've
Yes.
done events, I think, actually.
Oh,
yeah. Oh,
that'd be
yeah.
a good
Yeah.
collab. Are there collabs in the weed space?
100% all the time.
What is
There's
the internet?
always
Is anyone doing a collab with Snoop
Snoop? Not in mass, I don't think.
or Martha?
There was a lot of them out there. Like there was a lot
Martha
of,
and Snoop like own a
so there's
weed
like
company
like
together.
The Belushis, like the Blues Brothers have
Yeah.
one. The guys from the Smugglers, Gentlemen Smugglers. Remember those guys back in like the 1980s down in
No.
Florida? They took